Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Your His Story, the first ever channel on Twitch and YouTube, where honestly all we do is just share the testimonies of God in the life of gamers around the world. We're so thankful that you're here, God. Well, yeah, God, we are thankful that you're here. No, we're so thankful that you guys are here, chat. And I just pray that this whole channel would really inspire you to steward God's story for your life that much better. Testimonies and the story of our life is so important and often overlooked. And a lot of times we feel like, oh, we don't have a story. We don't have anything to share. We don't have anything of value to add. But that's not true. And the Bible says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, so by Jesus' sacrifice, and by the word of our testimony, what God has done in our life and through our life. And so I just encourage you guys to take time, be intentional, share your story, write your story down, use it in future seasons when you're going through something. This week, I was talking to a friend, and he brought something up that triggered a memory I had of a blog that I used to write. And what was really fascinating is I was like, man, I wonder if it's still alive, because it was on Tumblr, of all places. And so I went on Tumblr, and I found it, and I started reading and just connecting with it and seeing where I was a couple years ago. And it was amazing. It encouraged the heck out of me, honestly. Yeah, it encouraged the heck out of me. It was awesome to see. Yeah, I just read some old things that I had written down, some words that God had spoken to me. And it was really powerful. It really, really, really encouraged me and just made me think like, man, I remember when, me and Jesus were walking that close and we were that intimate and life wasn't so busy. And it just inspired me to want to pursue him even more and get even more healthy and more close to him. And yeah, it was awesome. I had a great day yesterday. Anyway, this morning I'm excited. We have Raine on, who is the guild leader right now for Allied for Christ, or from a mustard seed. I put guild leader for Allied for Christ. I better change that. He's actually the guild leader from a mustard seed, but Allied for Christ is the Discord server we're part of. Let's see. Let me change that real quick. Wow, guild. Okay. And so yeah, he's going to be sharing this morning. We pre-recorded it this weekend. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it live, but it's okay. Some people just can't make it work with work. He works third shift, so he's just getting sleep right now, basically going to sleep. So yeah, we appreciate his heart. We appreciate him sharing. If you guys are interested, or you know anyone who's interested and would love to share your story, or think they have an amazing story that they should share, I encourage you guys, click the link in the chat, fill out the form. I'll connect with you as soon as I can. We're looking for more testimonies, more stories. Next week would be a person, her name's, her Discord name is Cerulean, yeah, I think Cerulean. And she's got an awesome story. She has a PhD in chemistry, and she's a special education chemistry teacher. And she just has an amazing testimony of how God's delivered her. The following week, I'm probably gonna have a real life friend come and share. He's also a gamer. Come and share a little bit of his story and his journey. And then, yeah, we're just looking for more testimonies. I think I have one more after that. But looking for more stories, more testimonies. So if you're interested, you'd love to be on here, share your story, encourage some people. Again, I encourage you. Your story matters. It might not sound like an epic story, but you never know. First of all, God's been doing stuff in your life, whether you realize it or not. And yeah, even if you don't think you have a story, oftentimes you do. And it just takes a little bit of conversation to pull it out. Oh, excuse me. We also have N7 Panhead, I believe 2 weeks. So Cerulean, N7 Panhead, then my real life friend. So we're going to need about 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. We're going to need some more testimonies. So if you're interested, yeah, just fill out that form in the chat. And yeah, I appreciate you guys being here again. I'm going to open in prayer, and then we'll get into it. So, Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for today. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your faithfulness. God, thank you for just all that you are. Thank you that you love us, God. And we just pray for this testimony this morning, just this life story, that we would just take encouragement and that you would just speak through us, or speak through it to us, God. God, we love you. We thank you for the time to get together to hear these stories. And yeah, we just pray that you're blessed by it, that we all are blessed by it, and that we would continue just to share stories and the testimony of what you're doing in our life. So God, we love you. We thank you for today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, let's get into it. Mercy Edge, I see you lurking. We still have to connect. You filled out your form a while ago. Reach out to me on Discord. Again, I'd love to try to connect and set up a time to go over things and just talk through it and get you on the schedule too. I know you were interested a while ago. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to mute the music live and switch to recording. And then let's see. All right, what's going on? Welcome to the stream.
Well, thank
Raine,
you for having me.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too.
Yeah. Appreciate you being here, just hanging out. We've had a little bit of time to get to know each other and just connect, which has been good. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm thankful that you're willing to share and just be here and just be a part of the community. I did want to just take a moment and honor you too. One of the hardest things about WoW, I feel like, or any games, is like getting into a community and just feeling like this is my home, you know? And I feel like you've done an excellent job of just being inclusive and welcoming people, and obviously play your class exceptionally well. And you and your wife are just really kind and amazing people, and it's been good. I haven't played a lot with you guys, but the little I have, like the month or so I was playing with you guys were awesome. Helped me run through dungeons and do all that stuff. So just thank you for just being a home and just a place people can come and just enjoy themselves and play WoW, you know?
Of course. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of that.
So let's get everyone introduced to you a little bit. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? So age, if you're married, if you have kids, kind of where you're at generally geographically, and then your favorite video game of all time. That's the best question.
Oh, of all time.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So my name's Dave, but everyone in the guild knows me as Raine. I am 32 years old. I am married with Caitlin, but her name in the game is Lasana. We currently live in Battle Creek, Michigan. As far as my favorite game, oh man, I would probably say one of the Final Fantasy games, either 7 or 10. Probably 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
I played 7. 7
Not
was
the
great.
remake. Not the remake. The
Sure.
PlayStation 1 version. Yeah. That's not.
I don't know 10. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that either. What was 10 similar? Like,
And 10 was on the PlayStation 2. It had Titus and like Orin and
Okay.
Yuna.
sure.
Yeah.
So that's actually an interesting thing, because being that Final Fantasy games are potentially your favorite games overall, but you're playing WoW instead of Final Fantasy 14.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever try Final Fantasy 14?
I have.
Okay.
And I would go back to it, but right now there's lots of WoW stuff going
Sure.
on.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I remember that, because I came into Discord not that long ago, and I was mentioning that I was grinding out in Final Fantasy, and your wife's like, "Yeah, I wish I could return to it," or I've been thinking about it lately. Was that her that said that? Because she played as well.
Yeah, she
Okay.
played. She created a character with
Okay.
me, and we've been playing it together.
Yeah.
But I think the last time we played it was like 2 months ago.
Okay.
We've got all the expansions,
Sure.
so we're up to like what is it, Shadowbringers?
Endwalker now, but yeah.
Endwalker.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got Endwalker, and we'd hop back on it any moment here now.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, so for those of you who don't know, Raine has been basically guilding or managing the WoW community that we play with, or that a lot of people play with in WoW. So I can understand can't really just like, see you guys, I'm going to play Final Fantasy. It's pretty hard to do, you know?
Right.
So, okay. So what inspired you? I know we talked about this already, but what inspired you to want to share a little bit of your story?
All right, so I've been watching your stream, and I think I'm up to your first stream.
Sure.
And I really enjoyed that. But what inspired me the most was Johnny's stream. I raid and dungeon quite often with Johnny, and he had quite a story to tell, and some things I didn't even know about. You know, I talk with Johnny all the time. He's always hopping on Discord, and we're always chatting it up. But there's some things I didn't know, and it really inspired me based off his testimony and what he had to say.
No, that's awesome.
I really enjoyed it, and I think I could share the same as far as my upbringing and my faith, and how I had to renew my faith later in life. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it was great. Johnny was the guinea pig of the test, the first test, and he did a great job. And I'm like I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm interested in bringing him back. Just talk about different seasons of life, or where they're at now, or different things. He's got tons of stories and tons of. I didn't know he was a pastor, like a youth pastor or whatever. I'm like, mind blown.
Yeah. It surprised me the first time I heard it.
just a bunch of different things.
But
like
I could see it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, his personality's you can definitely see it. So that's great. Okay. Well, I know that you came prepared. You've been thinking about it and kind of mulling over what you'd like to share. So I'm going to pass the floor over to you. You can start where you want. I will interject or ask you questions. But just share what's on your heart, share what you feel like is relevant. And I just pray that everyone here would honestly just receive what God would have for them from it. You know, I feel like sometimes people think like my testimony won't help anybody, or on the opposite, like you have such an extreme testimony, then the person watching it is like, I don't have like anything to receive from this. But I feel like God, in everybody's story, you can take something away from it and learn something. And so I'm excited for you to share, and I will just pass the floor to you, my friend. I'm all ears. You can start where you want, and I will, like I said, I'll ask questions if I have them.
All right. Thank you. I agree. There's always something you can find in each person's testimony. And I hope my testimony can reach someone out there. So my upbringing, I was born in Illinois. My parents were separated as soon as I was born, I guess you can say. And I was raised in Chicago. Chicago was rough, even at a young age. Especially with my family. I felt like we were always having a hard time with rent and always moving, either moving to our own apartment or moving with family. It was either one or the other. Felt very constant. And up to the age of like, I want to say 14 is when we decided to move out of Illinois entirely and move with one of our uncles over in Colorado. During that entire childhood, I would have my father pick me up over the weekends. My father was the religious figure in my family. He is very devoted to his faith. He is, I believe it's apostolic, the denomination.
Sure.
And he would take me to church on Sundays when I was with him. And when I was a child, his church didn't really fit me.
Sure.
It was more conservative, more how would I say, more for an older generation.
Sure.
I guess I would say. And so I didn't find Christianity so appealing at the time, based off that only experience I had with my father's church.
Yeah.
But it was still there. Like, I knew God already. And so that served me later in life. But we'll get there. So I moved with my mom over to Colorado with my uncle. Lived there for about a year. And it didn't really work out with me, because I always felt like, because my uncle had his family over there was already a family of 5, and we were just like there living with them, and it felt like we were out of place. And so I decided the year after moving there that I'd rather live with my father. You know, it would just be my father, myself, and my stepmother. And so I decided to fly on over. I stayed with them. I went through high school, lived with them until I was 20, I believe 20. And that's when I knew I needed to move out. I needed to do something with my life. The household was completely fine. It was a Christian household. We'd go to church. I had my own job at the time. I was working at Cardinal Health. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but that's a medical supplier.
Sure.
They ship to all sorts of hospitals and centers. But I was working there, and I decided I need to do something else. You know, I can't just work at this place for X amount of years until I grow old and whatnot. And so I decided to join the military, the Army specifically. It was kind of out of a whim too, because like one of my co-workers was former military, and he was telling me about his stories, and I'm like, maybe I'll do that myself. It'll get me out of home. It'll put me somewhere else in the world, and why not? And so like that same week, I went to the recruiter's office. I told them I wanted to do this, and I wanted to leave as soon as possible, and they're like, yeah. Take this test and pee in this cup and you're off.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't until like maybe 3 or 4 months later that I got shipped over to basic training. Had basic in Fort Jackson, Carolina, one of the Carolinas, South Carolina maybe. And then had my other training in Fort Lee, Virginia. And then I was stationed in New York, but not New York City or anywhere around there. No, we're talking about upstate New York where it's borderline Canada and it gets cold there and there's feet of snow, and that's not what I was expecting whatsoever. So I got stationed there for 4 years. And during that time I did get deployed over to Afghanistan, where I served as an ammunition specialist, where we take care of the ammo, we distribute it, we keep track of it over to the units and whatnot. And so that was a good experience. It really changed my outlook as far as like what we're doing over there. Sure. And like who the enemy is, and during that time of conflict, and like the civilians as well, because it's a different country for sure. It's there's a lot of more poverty in those countries, especially in Afghanistan, and it really changed the outlook in my life. Or not everyone is as blessed as us in the U.S. over here with electricity, and sure. There's like nothing over there. Yeah.
Did you find sorry to interrupt, but did you find yourself in that season like having a lot of compassion for like the people there and like the native population, and kind of like that kind of heart pull? Like, what was kind of your experience through that side of it?
Yes, most definitely. It was definitely a heart pull. Just the kids in general. I know at the ammo point where I was working at, we would have this camera where we could look at our ammo, but we could also move it around and look at the nearby village. And it could zoom in pretty far in. So some days I would just look at the village and see what's going on there, and I'd see these kids just running around, and they didn't have much. They were playing with rocks and sticks. That's what they had, and that's how they find joy. And so it really did tug on me as far as like just these civilians living in the area, in these nearby villages. You know, it really moved me as far as wanting to see how they lived. Sure. I guess it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. Go on. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's just, yeah, I can only imagine just seeing you were at the tail end of when everyone was starting to like come out of Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, so I got deployed back in 2013.
Okay.
So I joined the army I joined the army in January of 2013. I got deployed in November of 2013.
Okay.
So that same year.
Sure.
And so yeah, it was definitely a good experience to begin with. I actually I insisted that I deploy, because they weren't going to deploy me at first, and I'm like, I kind of want to do it just to, you know, leave the base and go overseas. And so that's what I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
For that first year.
Okay, yeah, go on. Sorry.
All right. So throughout my childhood, my teenage years, and those early years in the army, I didn't know Christ. I had gone to church, but I didn't know Christ at like a faith level, I guess you can see. I've gone to church, and I prayed here and there, but my soul was not in the right place. I had not focused so much in my faith at the time.
Sure.
And so that didn't come into play until I was exiting the army. I think at the time I was going through a pretty hard breakup at the time, and I didn't want to like focus on that, and I didn't want to go out drinking, because that's a big thing in the army.
Sure.
and I didn't want to just dive myself into alcohol. And so one thing, I wanted to look for a church, but I was still in the army, and that was pretty hard. But my friend, Seth, he he's Korean,
Yeah.
and how that plays in the part is he would attend a Korean church in the area, and so I asked him about his church, and he's like, "Yeah, there's an English service too." And so I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll just go to his English service." I didn't know at the time it was like a full Korean church,
Sure.
but the day I was visiting his church, he had just messaged me as I was on my way. He's like, "Hey, there's no English service today." So it's all in Korean. And I'm like, "Oh man, I don't speak Korean. How am I gonna understand this?"
Yeah.
And so he's like, "No, it's still cool. It's still cool. You just come along. We'll fix it." And I got there, and he meets me, and he brings me in, and there's this lady there, and she hands me this headset. So in this headset, there's a translator that's translating everything that's the preacher's saying. And so I was able to understand that way. But it's kind of funny throughout that service. The songs are in Korean, everything's in Korean. And they didn't translate the songs, so I couldn't sing along. But at one point, I think they asked anyone who's a visitor to please stand up. And I believe there was only myself and another lady that stood up. And I'm standing up, and they're singing to us. Everyone's facing us and singing us. And it was a fun experience. Oh man, I really enjoyed that, and I'm so thankful that I got to go to that church on that day. I did go back to that church on English service a different day, but that was much better. It was a smaller group, and they really spoke to each like individual in the group, so I enjoyed that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But since that time, I've been exploring other churches. So I'll go into that later. But so I went to that church, felt Christ, decided I need to start praying again. I was I think I had only like 3 weeks left in the army. So I got out the army, drove myself back home, stayed with my parents for I think for a solid like 5 or 6 months after I left the army. Yeah, but during that time I was exploring the churches around my parents' house, and I went to their church again, of course, and then I explored other churches. I explored some Catholic churches. I explored evangelical, non-denominationals, quite a bit. I really do like looking at other churches, attending them. It's so different how you could have like one denomination and another, but still praise God in a different way. I love that. So I lived with my parents for about 5 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I moved over to study at a vet tech school. So I was initially going to be a vet tech. So it's a veterinarian technician.
Yep.
You deal with animals at a vet clinic. But that didn't quite work out. Well, it was working out. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, I was like, they don't get paid so much, and if I'm gonna get married here soon, in the near future or whatnot, then I'm gonna need a better paying job for sure. And so at the same time, I was dating Caitlin, my wife, who plays as Lasana in the guild. I met her through Christian Mingle. Great app, great website if you're looking for a significant other.
Sure.
Um,
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, no. But we met through there. Our first date was over in Michigan. I drove 3, maybe 4 hours over from Illinois.
Okay.
We had a lunch and we did a escape room. So that was really fun. Up to this day, we love doing escape rooms. It's a good pastime of ours.
Yeah.
So I'm still in vet tech school. I'm dating Caitlin. We're doing a long distance thing, going back and forth with whoever drives to one another. I think we were doing like every 2 weeks, where I drive to her, and then the other time
Sure.
she'd drive to me, and that was fun. But as I'm in that program, I'm like, oh man, I think this is the one. I can't. Her being a preschool teacher, me being a vet tech, I don't think it's going to work out so much with like salary wise.
Long term.
So
yeah.
I decided to stop that program and go into XRAY school. I really enjoyed XRAY while being in vet tech. We would X-ray dogs, cats, whatnot. And so I decided, you know what? I really like bones. That's really odd to say, but I like X-raying bones.
Yeah.
That's what I do now.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, I decided to stop out of that, quit that program entirely, and then look for a new school that did X-ray. And one of those schools was over here where Caitlin lived. So that's when I decided, you know what? I'm just going to move over there with her and go to that school.
Awesome.
And that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome. So it's an XRAY Tech school, right? Basically?
Yes,
Yeah.
XRAY Tech school.
That's awesome.
So I take X-rays at a hospital, all sorts of X-rays.
Yeah.
Most common one being a chest X-ray.
Sure.
If you've ever had one. But moved on over here, picked up everything I had from my apartment, moved over here. Myself and Caitlin, we rented an apartment where we currently live right now. We're in the process now of looking for a house.
Praise the Lord.
So, praise the Lord, yeah. We live together, I want to say, right now it would be 4 years, I want to say. But after 2 years, I decided, you know what, I've got to propose this woman. So on Thanksgiving night, when we all gather around their family's house, I whipped out the ring. Only her mom knew about it, because I was studying as an X-ray tech, but we would do clinicals at a hospital.
Sure.
And so the same hospital is where her mom would work. So I was able to talk with her mom about like the proposal and when I'm going to do it, and I want you to video record it. And so we we were having Thanksgiving, and right as everyone was getting to leave, she's like, oh, let's take some pictures. And so that was the cue. She's not actually taking pictures, but she's recording.
Sure.
And I proposed, and of course she said yes. And a year later after that, we ended up getting married.
Awesome.
That's great. But during our entire time here, myself and Caitlin, we would explore churches around the neighborhood. So she goes to her own church. She's a preschool teacher at the education center next to that, or it's attached to the Lutheran church. And so she's a preschool teacher there. We'd attend that church up to this date. We still attend that church. She's also a band member. She sings,
which is awesome.
But yeah, so during her off days when she wouldn't sing at that church, we'd explore other churches around the neighborhood as well. And we like doing that. It's the different way that people preach and just worship that it's really uplifting. There's so many ways that you can praise God, and we love it. But as of right now, it's the Lutheran Church. That's our
Sure.
home church. She sings and she teaches it right around there. And so I think I want to say roughly 2 years ago, I got her into playing WoW. At the time, I want to say we were part of a guild called Control Alt Delete, and they were a decent guild. They were a very populated guild, had lots of players, very active in the raid scene, in the mythic scene. But we raided with them one night. It was supposedly a fun run, and we didn't have so much fun in that guild, at least not during that run. Lots of people were drinking, they were borderline drunk already, there was lots of swearing. Not the ideal place for a Christian couple. And so we decided, yeah, we're gonna step away from this guild and look for something that might be better for us.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to look for a Christian guild, and that's exactly what I searched up on the guild finder, was Christian. And that's when I came across From a Mustard Seed, the Christian WoW in the guild server, Allied for Christ. At the time, it was Levi that was the guild leader, and we were running Nathria. And it was a complete different scene. Just going from that like very toxic raid we had earlier to this Christian guild where they'd pray before the actual raid. It was so new, so refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we really loved. And we decided, you know what, this has got to be it. This is going to be our home guild for WoW. And we're just part of that guild still. We've raided, we've done Mythic Plus, we've invited so many members over the last 2 years. We try to be as inclusive as possible, even to this day. I know Levi has stepped away for a while. I'm hoping he's coming. He said he's coming back, so I'm looking forward to that as well. I miss Levi. But during his absence, I had to take over the role of being a guild leader. And that can be challenging. I can see why Levi would want a break. So I guess I took leadership during Sanctum, in the middle of Sanctum, when he stepped away. I also had to become the raid leader, so it was guild leading and raid leading. I don't suggest it. Definitely have another officer dealing with something. Mm-hmm. So I like the same. I went along the same pace that Levi would lead the guild and the raid. I would usually have AJ lead us in prayer, whereas originally it would be Levi.
Sure.
But AJ being a minister, I would have him pray, as I felt like it'd be more comfortable for him.
Sure.
For sure. And we love AJ. AJ's always the man. The man with the plan.
Yeah. And the poor internet.
Or we would have, and the poor internet. Yeah, his 2 internets. He has 2, but it's always lag. It's good. One day he'll get a 3rd. But we'd have him or Susie. Susie became part of our guild later. In this most recent tier, we didn't have him pray, and being a pastor at the time, I believe. And guild leading was fine. It was more so raid leading. And it kind of tugged at me at times where I'd have to ask people to sit out for raids.
I'm one of those people.
Because it's hard. Even when I spoke to Levi about it, it was hard on him.
Sure.
Not everyone's the same skill level.
Sure.
And
Everyone
not everyone's
be
ready
like
for
Emerus. Emerus is like way up here, and then you're like way up here, and then everyone else.
Yeah.
And then I'm like off the screen, like way down here. I'm just kidding.
No, I hear you.
That's tough.
And you're not the only one.
Sure.
So don't worry.
I haven't invested the same amount of time that you guys have. To me, pick it up and be like, hey, I'm gonna play for 4 weeks. I'm expecting to be like good is not reality. So I get it. But go on. So that was challenging. Yeah.
You'll be surprised. You'll get up there.
So you were challenged by that?
Yes. I feel like so not everyone plays at the same skill level.
Sure.
Some people might be good on LFR, good on normal, or they might be good on heroic, which is the constant we always aim to achieve.
Sure.
Like AOTC. And some people have struggled pretty badly. And so I'd ask them to sit out. But that was pretty hard, just asking people to sit out, because you do want to be inclusive. I've always wanted to be inclusive. I always invite these people for normal raids.
Sure.
It's only into like when we start getting into progression heroic bosses that I ask them to sit down.
Sure.
After a few pulls, so that we could clear the boss and whatnot. But we did bring them back and got them AOTC just recently. I want to say in the last week or two.
Sure.
So that was great. And so we really enjoyed this Christian guild. We think it's part of us now. I really saw a big play as far as Christianity when it came to this guild. Even more recently, in the last month or two, we started well, there was already a community, but now with the cross faction scenario, we all combined, all these Christian guilds now combined onto this one community in WoW called the Christian WoW Guilds. So I believe in total there's like 5 or 6 Christian guilds all throughout WoW, and we joined this community, and we're just so glad to have a bigger Christian community throughout WoW. I want to say on a daily basis there's like at least 40 players or something. So we're really enjoying conversing and just hanging out with other fellow Christian guilds, even though they're like different faction, different server.
Sure.
So that plays a major big part within WoW. But as far as my own faith,
so here's a question I can ask you related. So how has this experience in the WoW Guild and in these Christian communities really helped shape your faith and your personal walk?
So, like I said, I just renewed my faith after leaving the army when I started exploring these other churches. And with WoW in general, I felt like when I was playing WoW, it kind of felt like I was playing in a very toxic environment within like different guilds, not the current Christian guilds,
sure,
but other guilds. And I wouldn't be able to share my faith with anyone. It was kind of taboo to talk about Christianity in these other guilds.
Mm-hmm.
I know AJ in the past mentioned that he couldn't share about Christ either. His guild at the time was like, you can't speak about that here.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt in the previous guild I was in. My fate was was lacking until I met a Christian guild and being part of it. Definitely a lot more prayer in my life has come into play with praying for fellow guild members with their requests.
Sure.
Yeah, there's always requests, even just for like the raid in general. We always raid before raids, and they always ask for requests, and we're always praying. We're praying for our fellow members. We're always trying to uplift them and, you know, give them peace and know that we're praying for them. I know lately there's been lots of loss within the guild as far as their extended family members. Sure. And so we've been praying for some comfort now. But we love it. We love having this community, having Christian and games. It's so uplifting. I've never encountered it before. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. No, I appreciate like I mentioned at the beginning, just the inclusivity and just the welcoming atmosphere and just being able to be part of it. And it's been awesome. Honestly, AJ's like the billboard for like loyal WoW players. And so
for sure.
I've watched him for so long and connected with him. And it's just like, man, for a year, he was like going hard, like, dude, come join me in WoW, come join me in WoW. And I played for many years, but I just never really took it seriously. And then now I'm starting to like get into a little bit more. It is good. It's good to have a home. It's good to have a place called home and like a clean, like non-toxic environment that's willing to help. I do think it's funny. You mentioned the thing about, so when I joined Nathria, I was on a different server. He had moved to Illidan, so they were doing Nathria. And I remember getting involved. He's like, dude, you can come raid with us. And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about this group. And so I get in we were doing the boss. I forget what boss, but it's like a person you have to heal up on the pedestal. And then like a bunch of ads to spawn throughout the whole fight. And then you have to kite the boss around the room. I forget what it is, but you have to heal the person that's up top.
It's the Sun King.
Yeah. So I go in there and I'm thinking, okay, I can play okay. I think I did okay as like an arms warrior. And like I'm all ready. And I'm like, hey guys, thanks for the invite, whatever. And then Levi's like, all right, we're gonna pray. And I'm like, we're gonna pray in a game. What the heck? Everyone's like all time. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to pray. I'm like, wow, this is like totally shocking to me. Totally shocking. And not even in a bad way. It was like, I don't know why I never thought integrating faith in gaming was so impossible or like so different. You know what I mean? It's like any other sports or different things I've done. Like people pray before sports and pray before all these things they do. It's like, why is this such a far-fetched thing for video gaming? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think I heard it through one of your streams, but or maybe it was Johnny's or Susie's, but he's like, it's kind of taboo to talk about video games and Christianity, like in your like typical church setting. But it's perfectly fine to involve games and Christianity, especially in like where you have like a community, like a guild setting.
Yeah. I think people don't realize, even the small, it's kind of like a small group is basically what it is. You guys are doing something together, encouraging each other, praying for each other, supporting each other, and doing something together that you all enjoy. It's just like a league, like a soccer league or something, Christian soccer league or anything like that you would do, So I'm sorry, did I interrupt? Did you have more of your story? I didn't want to cut you short. Okay.
No, you're good. You're
good.
Okay.
No, I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your heart. So I'll ask you a couple more questions before we wrap up here.
Go for it.
How, in your journey, where have you seen God the most at work? in your personal life or in just in general, and since you've kind of renewed your faith?
Definitely in my personal life. You know, with finding my wife, that played a major part from like our wedding. We had our wedding, both like the ceremony and the reception at the church, and we didn't pay much for that.
That's awesome.
So that was lots of savings. And at the time, I just finished school, X-ray school. So we didn't have much in our pocket.
Sure.
And now even now with looking for a home, we're having Christ in that as well. We're praying for it. We even with like future plans with having children, which we do plan on having, we're putting God in that. We just want to put every aspect of our life with Christ. Even when I was looking for a job, like I was putting Christ in that. Like my first days at work, I was kind of messing up on a few things here and there, and I'd have some hard time, and I'd go pray. I'd go pray whenever I was having a hard time, even at work. I was getting out of work, before work. Yeah, I would put Christ in every aspect.
That's awesome. So prayer is really the biggest place that God has been like really stirring you in and pushing you in and growing you in this season. That's awesome. Okay, so I'll leave with this. We'll do one last question. What if you could encourage the people here, the people who are going to watch this, with just one, I don't know if it's a Bible verse, if it's just encouragement that you want to give, something you've learned from life, a life lesson, what's something that you would leave people with as just encouragement, an encouraging word, or encouraging something like a nugget for people to leave with? What's something that's been super significant in your life you've held on to, maybe specific song or specific word or something that you've been reading or praying about, or something God's been speaking to you, something along those lines?
All right. No, with lots of conflict and division amongst lots of people out there. One major thing that has always played in my heart was love thy neighbor. And you know, there's so many opinions even in this current time, and you can't let opinion cloud your judgment over what God has commanded you to do, and that's being love your neighbor.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
that's a good word. I receive it. I think it's so base level and so like fundamental. We just overlook it so many times. I'm like,
oh, for sure.
Like, yeah, I know that's in the Bible, but I don't actually live it out sometimes, and it's convicting and also good.
It's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah,
I would say for sure, because there's individuals that kind of like push your buttons and whatnot, and might disagree with you to an extent, but you know, you've got to get past that.
Sure.
You've got to let Christ work in you, and just be a loving individual towards all fellow humans.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing your heart and just taking the time and just letting us in a little bit. Super grateful to know you guys. Super grateful to do life as we go forward, especially with Dragonflight. Like I'm pretty excited about Dragonflight. I love Wrath, and I'm excited for Wrath. But at the end of the day, like Dragonflight looks amazing. I think, just so much there. And it's just like, just the thought of, hey, I don't have to find a guild and work and like, is this a good fit for me? Is this that? Like, I can now like, hey, I have a community to call home. That's like a really, 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 really big deal for people, I think.
No, for sure.
And so I'll make sure I post up even the Discord link to Ally for Christ too, for anyone who's interested in the chat. But yeah, I appreciate you being here again. You're awesome. I will send you off, and yeah, I look forward to hearing from you again. And I definitely you'll see me this week. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Sorry, no, that wasn't the most gracious transition, but uh, so yeah, wish I had time to play 2 MMOs. Doesn't everybody? I feel like, yeah, that was so good. Raine is such an amazing guy. So kind and loving, and accepting, inclusive, and just has such a great heart. It's been an absolute encouragement just to see him, to spend time with the community. And so, not Nick Cage. So, at one point, I had a WoW sub, a Final Fantasy sub, a Star Wars: The Old Republic sub, and I was playing New World. And I was like, kind of trying to rotate through them, but I bought all 6 months at the same time for each one. So I was like, just kind of like playing a little bit at a time. But now I think I'm gonna play WoW. WoW's just headed into a good season, and but yeah, I'm feeling your pain. I appreciate you guys being here, lurking, hanging out, talking, connecting. I know it's a pre-recorded session, but sometimes we'll have pre-recorded sessions just because it's early. And yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Next week we should have Cerulean. She has a PhD in chemistry. She's a special education teacher for chemistry. Has some amazing stories and things that God's done in her life while getting her PhD and different things. And her view on creation and being in the science field and getting her PhD, it's incredible. The following week should be N7 Panhead. And his story and his testimony is amazing. Should have a friend the following week. And then I'm just going to speak it in faith that Calexander's going to be the week after that, because I'm waiting for her to want to share her story. I feel like God wants her to share her story, but we'll let her, on her own time, turn this in. If any of you guys are interested in sharing, you didn't hear that last week, Calexander? I said, I was praying last week, and I felt like God was like, I need to reach out to Calexandra and have her share her story. I mentioned that last week. You must have just been lurking. So, oh, if you want to bore everyone. Oh, okay. Anyway, if you know anyone that wants to share their testimony, there's the link in the chat. You can fill it out yourself or reach out. We do need more testimonies. We need more people. Yeah, no story is boring. Trust me. You might think you got nothing, quote unquote, of value, but God's done some amazing things in your life. Oh my gosh. Okay. So anyway, appreciate you guys being here. I love you guys. We're going to send you off to Susie's morning prayer stream. I know it's been impacting me, been very, very impactful for me. I've just been trying to be more intentional with prayer time and quiet time. And yeah, so I just encourage you guys to be present there. And yeah, I'll be live next week, Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. again. If you can make it, great. This week I will end up starting a social media of some sort, whether it's Twitter or probably Twitter. Just a platform to communicate. That's pretty much it. So just so we can, yeah, just have a little bit more communication, so I don't have to use everyone else's Discord to communicate. So otherwise, I love you guys. Let's head over to Susie's channel, show them some love, be present. And that's interesting. It won't let me raid now. Hold on. I think I have to wait a few more seconds. Okay, now I can go. All right, let's go, guys. Love you. Have a good day.